Okay, today we have a Sutta study at the Singapore Buddhist Mission in Ruby Lane, and we're going to chapter 5 of SD 39, 39.5, Jati Paccaya Sutta. Okay? So when you say the word Paccaya, it means it refers to the 12 links, the what you call it, dependent arising. Okay? There are many suttas which talk about dependent arising. This is one that shows you the links, the three parts, the sutta. One long one, this is the starting. If you look at the translation on page 107, the discourse on conditions, brackets, birth. Because there are many suttas on conditions. Paccaya means conditions. So this one, it begins, the keyword is birth, jati. The reason for this is because jati, if you notice, is at the head of the list. Actually, right at the head is birth and death, but after that is birth. So some sutta use the word jati, so I use the word jati together with paccaya, so that we get a unique name. One reason I do this is because very often, if you have attended Dharma talks by teachers, especially teachers, meditation teachers, they will tell you, in this sutta, the Buddha said this, but they won't tell you the reference. So students are very interested, they want to look up sutta for themselves and don't know where to locate it. Okay, so this is a service we provide. We provide a special service. We'll tell you where to locate the sutta. And very often we get people emailing us saying, oh, I heard this sutta. Sometimes they don't even know the name, So they say the monk said this, so they give me clues. So to me it's like a very interesting game, detective game, So we look it up. And when we find it, we're very happy. We send it to them. So this is a good way of familiarizing ourselves with the suttas. One of the very wonderful things we are doing now with the sutta translation is we are naming all the suttas. Whatever suttas we meet with, we have to translate, we give them a unique name so that we can refer to them directly. If suttas have no names, it's so difficult to refer to them. They all have numbers, by the way, but we don't always remember the numbers. Okay? So you can either remember the reference number or the sutta name. So here, sutta name, Jati Paccaya Sutta. There are many Paccaya Suttas, so I've added in the word Jati in front as a prefix. And because it's added there, I put the brackets to show that it was originally not there. And then you have the reference, S 12.20. S is Sangyutta Nikaya, Connected Discourses of the Buddha. And then chapter 12. You want to know what does 12 mean? You look at the top. You look at, say, page 107. Right at the top, you can see the traditional number. Traditional number is quite long. S 2.1.2.10. Okay? And then the meaning, Sangyutta, section 2. The name is Nidana Wagga. Section 1, the name is Sangyutta, Nidana Sangyutta. Section 2, which is called Ahara Wagga. Ahara means food. And then sutta number 10. Right? So this traditional number. Why is it important? Let's say you want to look up the Sinhalese version, Burmese version, Thai version, Cambodian version, Laotian version. This is the number you have to look at. Of course, most of us wouldn't need to do this, but scholars, monks who do research need this number. Okay? Otherwise, we don't know. We can't authenticate the sutta. It's very important. You must authenticate it. You must know, yes, it is found in the Pali Canon. Then we say it's authentic. That means it goes back to the earliest days of the Buddhist history. On the other side, on page top of page 108, you see the modern reference. First, on the left-hand side, SD number. Now we should be proud in the decades to come, because SD stands for Sutta Discovery, also stands for Singapore Dharma. But this translation has become the most detailed in the world. I didn't know this until people started writing to me and say, your translation has got everything that I need. So SD 39.5, volume 39, chapter 5. And then on the other side, S1220, that's the key reference number. And then volume and page, volume 2 of the Pali Text Society, published in London 100 years ago. Volume 2, page 25 to 27. And then you got the Pali name. All right. So if you look at the sutta beginning on page 107, the first part, the subheading I put it in so easy for you to look. Okay, because remember the Pali Suttas, they are oral tradition. So here is the reading tradition. So I put the subheading for you, dependent arising, the 12 links. So this is the first part. 12 links, but 11 factors. The connections are 11 of them. Links, the names are 12. You can see on the board written all the 12, but the links and the connection, we have only 11. That means in between A plus B or 1 plus 2, 1 leading to 2 and so on. So in the first part, the Buddha shows how they are connected. One is the condition for the next and so on. Sometimes it's forward, sometimes it's backwards. So in this case, it starts with death and decay and death. So this kind of, it starts backwards, okay, to the first one. And then in the second part, it's on page 110. Dependently arisen phenomena. See, here is an adjective. First, the Buddha talks about the links, 12 links, the process. And the second part, the Buddha talks about each of them. What is dependently arisen? So first part is called dependent arising. Second part is called what is dependently arisen. And the second part is for reflection and impermanence. Now once you hear this magic word, reflection and impermanence, you know what is the Buddha talking about, what stage of sainthood, stream winning, right? And that's the third part. Okay, so it's a quite systematic arrangement here. Now, dependent arising, you can go forwards or backwards. Okay, I've written on the board here is the natural flow. Okay, this is called the forward link. Okay, starting with ignorance. In other words, why do we suffer? What's going on in our life? Why are we the way we are? These kind of questions, okay, about existence, about being human or being a living being. Other religions tell you, oh, it's God. Okay, God created the world, so it started from there. But then if you ask questions, okay, who created God? They can't answer, but they will tell you, don't ask such questions. It's very bad, you go to hell and so on. So it's not very helpful. It's just taken on faith. So there's this big wall, there's this question mark, no one knows how to answer, just believe, okay? But in Buddhism, it's different. If you ask the question, how did I begin? You can say, I don't know. How did life begin? I don't know. Where did life begin? I don't know. And that's the right answer. Ignorance. Right? Ignorance, okay? But here, ignorance technically refers to ignorance of the Four Noble Truths. Because in Buddhism, we're not interested in scientific explanation. And they're interesting, yes. But remember, even scientific explanation change over time. So right now, the idea of the expanding and collapsing universe, the pulsating universe, is probably the most up-to-date idea. But I'm not a scientist, so another scientist will tell me, oh, you're out of date, we got a new theory now. But definitely 20 years ago, this theory was in vogue, you know. And then before that was another theory, and you go back and back. And then you go back to the Buddha's time, people thought the world was flat. They thought the world was a disc, you know. It was flat. And if you go over the edge, you will go down. And there are monsters there waiting for you. And they thought that the end of the world, the Indians, part of the end of the world is near South Africa, you know. In a sense, they're quite right, you know, because South Africa, there's a Cape of Storms there. There's so much storms there that they changed the name to Cape of Good Hope. They're hoping that there'll be less storms there. But that place is really terrible, you go at the wrong time. So, the world was flat. But of course, in Buddhism, we never really bother about all that. We talk about the different world systems, for example. So in a sense, the way the Buddha talk about universe is quite modern in a sense. We talk about many world systems, thousands of world systems, and so on. But the general idea was that even if you read the Mahayana Sutras, you find the world was flat. But this is one idea that the Buddhists have no problem changing it, because the suttas do not specifically say the world is flat. It doesn't really matter to us. But we know that this is not the only planet that exists. Another interesting thing is modern science, or rather, should I say this, the Western religion was in conflict with science for a long time. So there was a time when the church was very powerful during the time of Pope Alexander, the worst of the popes, before this colonial period started in the Renaissance period, 14th, 15th century. They believed that the Earth is the center of the universe, geocentric, and the sun moves around the Earth. Simple proof. They say, you see, the sun comes up from the horizon, it goes over the sky, and then it goes the other side, it goes around the Earth. But what you see is not always true. Now this is up to recent times, mind you, about 500 years ago. But the suttas are 2,500 years old. And in the suttas, we talk of Surya Cakrawala, or in Pali, Cakrawala. Cakrawala, Chakra means wheel, Wala kind of go around. The suttas talk about solar systems. In other words, there is some awareness that the sun is at the center of the universe. Okay, but it's not important to us over the details, but the word solar system definitely is a very interesting term. It shows that it's definitely more up to date than the idea of the Earth being the center of the universe. Okay, so coming back to this idea of ignorance, we're not talking about all this scientific stuff. The ignorance that causes us to suffer is because we do not know what really the Four Noble Truths mean. Yeah, we know in theory, Sunday school teaching, Four Noble Truths, suffering, arising of suffering, ending of suffering, and the path. But one thing you don't know, from my study and research, I think this formula is actually a later formula. The older formula in the suttas, actually, number 3 and 4 is switch around. You got number 4 and then 3. In other words, you got suffering, and the ending of suffering, and number 3 is nirvana. Number 3 is the path. The path. See? Usually number 3 is nirvana, right? But this one, number 3 is the path. And then number 4 is nirvana, which is more natural, see? In terms of practice. Let's say if you have to practice, first you notice that you're suffering, and then you examine, you see how suffering arises, the causes and conditions, and then you work to end it, right? Ending of suffering. And then the ending is the path. You take steps to correct it, that's the path. And then nirvana arises. That's the fourth noble truth. Very natural, right? So, suffering, arising, path, ending. This is the oldest version of the Four Noble Truths. One reason we know this very old is it's only mentioned a couple of times in the suttas, but it's there. But more often you see the standard formula. Suffering, ending of suffering, nirvana, the path. Why is this formula more popular? Because when you teach, this is the easiest. Number one, the Buddha will say, when you look around you, you see suffering, right? And we all agree, right? I mean, we can deny God, but you can't deny suffering. Then number two, the Buddha doesn't stop there. He say, well, there are the conditions that bring about suffering. Many conditions, never one condition. This is the meaning of paccaya. Paccaya means many conditions, never one condition. We never talk about first cause or only cause. And this is very important, From this, you can go on to talk about non-self, for example. Self means one thing. If you have the idea of self, you say, oh, I'm like that, I can't change. You have this idea that, oh, yours is a fixed self. I never met that person who cannot change. maybe for a certain period or for a long period, maybe even one whole life, a person may seem not to change. But we do change over time. At our age, if we examine, we find that we have changed a lot, right? So this idea of self, in other words, gives us the wrong idea of fixing things. Right? So there is suffering. And then again, when we look at suffering, we think, the only suffering we know is, we fall down, we get hurt, physical suffering. That's one kind. That's called dukkha dukkha, the suffering or physical suffering. Then number two, the Buddha says there is mental suffering, okay, or emotional suffering, if you like. You love someone, the person is missing. Last month we met this very kind, this wonderful lady. She's a Singaporean. She married a Laotian, very hardworking, conscientious, modern educated Laotian, one of the leading servants of the people. All that he did was work hard, serve the people, teach the farmers how to grow their crops properly, grow extra crops and so on, And it's a communist government in Laos, by the way. But apparently he made one mistake in the eyes of the authorities. He had lots of overseas contact. He's very well educated in America, so was the wife. The wife was Singaporean, he's Singaporean. So this man, his name is Sombat, Sombat Sompon. So once he organized all this international conference, lots of overseas people came and taught these farmers how to do right things, how to speak freely and so on. So I think the government was not too happy about this. So suddenly on the 15th of November, 2 years ago, he just disappeared just like that. December 15, 2 years ago, he just disappeared. Publicly, in the evening, I think around, 7 or 8 o'clock, I don't know, when it was dark. It's just like, let's say somebody is walking on the main road outside, he was walking on the main road, and this car come along and that's it. It's gone. Never seen again for 2 years. So we have a loved one, we have lost this person. She asked me, how do you deal with this sort of thing? I tell you, some discussions are really hard to answer. I can teach her all the Dharma, but when you lose someone, you begin to ask a lot of basic questions. I told her the basic thing I know. I said, you've got to preserve the happy memories you have about her, about your husband. Send loving kindness to him all the time. Even send loving kindness to people who persecute him. This is what I've been taught. This is what I've learned. So that's how I know how to tell her. I don't know what else. What else can I do? Give the Dharma. Never doubt that. Okay. Some people like to say, "What can I do?" and then they don't do anything. A simple thing like that will work miracles. No, I just did that. I do not know what's going to happen. Then she wrote to me, a very nice letter just a few days ago. She said, I've been meditating, like what you taught me. So I send loving kindness to my husband. I also send it to all these people who are holding him or whatever, who these people are, I don't know. I realized that if I send my loving kindness to my husband, I want to wish him well and happy, yes. But I also find that I should send my loving kindness to his captors, to people who are holding him, because if they are happy, they won't hurt him. And I said, that's really good thinking on her part, right? So you see, I didn't think that way, but I'm happy that she came to terms with the suffering that she is facing. So this is called self-reliance, you see. You hear the Dharma, The Dharma is not ready-made exactly, Sometimes it appears to be so, yes, that's of course wonderful. But you will somehow connect with it if you open up your heart, you really practice. So I'm happy I said, I've learned something from you. I hope you give me permission, I'm going to write a reflection on this for the benefit of other people. So there you are. This woman knows suffering. She's experiencing it. She really knows it in the sense that she has experienced it, she feels it. That's a big difference. So we know the Sunday school definition of Four Noble Truths, but we have not really suffered. Now we come every month, every week, every day. Sometimes we hear Dharma talks, all over the place now. Internet, books, so easy to get it. But we're not enlightened because we don't feel the Dharma. But once you really suffer out there, something terrible happens. When something terrible happens, you should welcome it. Because this is a time of learning. You are pulled out of your regular, comfortable life, and then you have to face something very different, very new. What did we learn about yourself? How do you cope with it? There are also others who have gone through this. Do you know how they feel now? Right? Then something opens up to you, like when the Buddha saw the first 3 sides. And then the 4th side comes to you. It may not be that of a holy monk, but the 4th side could be something to give up wrong views. The 4th side is about renunciation. Right? So if you reflect in this way, you begin to understand the Four Noble Truths better. Right? So otherwise, it's ignorance. There is suffering. So the first link is ignorance. Now, so here, what we do is we look at the links. We say, okay, on account of ignorance, there arises volitional formations, sankhara, avijja paccaya sankhara. Okay, sankhara usually in the plural here. Okay, in the singular it refers to those of the arahats. Here, volitional formations are those of body, speech, and mind. Through ignorance, we act, we think, and then we talk, and then we act to the body, right? So it's a quite clear link, right? So there's a very simple explanation. Sankhara refers to your actions through mind, body, and speech. The 3 doors of action, right? Sankhara. Now, because of this sankhara, because of this kind of karmic activity, there arises consciousness. Consciousness. Now, this one's a bit tricky. But again, if you use some imageries, it's not so difficult. Now, look at the baby. A newborn baby. This newborn baby is not really conscious of many things. The baby has got 5 senses, yes, but they're all not well developed yet. Okay? What sense do you think these babies normally, which of the senses develop first? Anyone experienced this? I mean, some of you have babies before, right? So these babies, what senses normally active first?
Hearing, smile.
The smile. Okay, what else? Hearing. I mean, your voice, they hear your voice, right? Then they respond, they smile, right? But they can't see you that well at first, right? And when they start seeing you, it's upside down. In fact, that's the real way of looking at the world, upside down, And I think after a few weeks, I don't know exactly how long, then our mind adjusts it. So we see, like, we say right side up. Actually, the picture in our mind is that the camera is upside down, right here in our head, and the eyeballs, but our mind adjusts it.
The doctor places them upside down when they are out of our womb.
Is it? Yes, yes. The funny thing was this, some psychologists did experiments. They put some kind of glasses in the subject's eyes, so you see the world upside down, like when you're babies. So of course, at first we feel like we're going to fall. So they learn to walk, After a while, they could do it. They conditioned themselves. They could do it. But then when they take out the glasses, this the other way around. They felt like they're going to fall. They got to recondition themselves again. So this is consciousness at work. Visual consciousness. And then sounds. The baby hears sounds, and baby responds. The mother makes motherly sounds, Smells. Babies are very used to smell. So if they get a wrong smell, they don't like. Right? That's why they prefer the mother, right? And of course, touch. Parents who hold their baby regularly, this child will learn to be close to the mother. That is why usually children closer to the mother than the father, because that's provided the mother holds the child closely more often, and holding is very important at the early stage. But in Asia, somehow after a while, they say, okay, no more hugging. There's big distance. Hugging is like a taboo in public in Singapore. I think Singapore is changing because slowly I think you see people hugging the open also. I mean, I'm not talking about girlfriends, boyfriends, I'm talking about wishing each other well. That's a very good way of comforting people. So this baby feels very human. It's a humanizing process. Our parents, we are grateful to our parents because our parents not only gave us a human body at birth, but for the first 7 years at least, also humanized us, make us human. Because if we don't have parents for the first 7 years and you're living with the wolves, you become a wolf. Body human, mind wolf. There are such stories. So smell, taste, touch, and so on. So in other words, consciousness here is the activity of our senses, the basic activities. So once you have this karmic process in your mind, the senses work to feed your karmic activities. Or your karmic activities begin to shape your senses. Here, the Buddha is not talking about eye, ear, nose, tongue, body in the physical sense. The eye in the physical sense in Pali is called akhi. Okay? The word akhi is rarely used in the suttas because it refers to the eyeball, as an organ. The usual word in Pali is chakku. And chakku refers to the conscious eye. So in other words, we're talking about the senses as faculties, functioning senses. A baby may have eyes, but if the baby is kept in the dark for a long, long time, it will go blind. So it grows up blind, got eyes but can't see. So in other words, this baby learns to see. And again, we teach the babies how to see. You notice when babies are born, one of the first things we do is we get a nice cradle, hang colorful things, noisy things, wear noisy shoes, squeak, 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 right? Because we want this child to be familiar with the sounds and colors, shapes, soft toys, so the baby will press, so all the senses begin to develop. That's what toys are for. They develop the sense, the consciousness of the child. So this child grows up with human consciousness. Now some cultures teach their children to see things that we don't know how to teach our children in an urban environment. For example, those Red Indian children, they're taught to see so many stars in the sky. Of course, their eyes are much better. They don't read books like us, and they don't have television those days. So they can see more stars in the sky than we do. So again, different cultures develop consciousness in different ways, right? But it gets developed on the third level. Any questions so far? Can follow the sequence? Yeah, more or less. No? Now, I tell you this, dependent arising is not simple, okay? So if you think you have a rough idea, that's good enough for the moment, and then you go on listening, you do your reading, you find it builds up on what? These basic things, So once you have consciousness, you have eye consciousness, ear consciousness, tongue consciousness, eye, ear, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and of course mind consciousness. The next thing is there is name and form, nama rupa. Here again, take the baby analogy. Mothers like to talk, baby talk. Mothers are better at baby talk than fathers. Because fathers think it's ridiculous to talk baby talk, so mothers are better. So one of the first, how come the word mother is mummy? And you find the M sound is almost universal. In many languages, the word for mother starts with an M. Indian is amma, and then mother in English, mata in Pali, mater in Latin, mutter in German, and so on. M sound. Because the mother always tells the baby, mum, drink your milk. Milk also M, okay, right? Even the breast is mammary glands, M. So this baby learns all this, first of all, a name, M sound, okay? Or maybe we get a toy when the baby is intelligent, you say, little ducky, right? It's short, So the baby sees ducky, this yellow little strange rubber-looking creature, and so baby sees yellow, shaped like a duck, so the baby slowly associates that image with a duck. So that name is the sound we give the baby, and the baby looks at the form. Name, form. And this happens to us even right now. Notice when you meet someone for the first time, after talking, what do? Next thing you ask, what's your name? We always want to ask, what's your name? Otherwise, we don't know who we are talking to, you know. And after that, we ask, what work do you do? And if we go on talking, we say, how many room flats do you have? It's a typical Singapore. And after that, I'll decide whether I want to talk to you again or not. So, anyway, so once someone has a name, then you can remember in your mind. Because it's very difficult to remember a shape of a person. So if a name is easier. But once the name is mentioned, the form appears in your mind. So name, form. This is a very simple explanation. Okay. So this is how consciousness works. We look at something, we say, what is this? If we don't know, we say, what is this? Then we need a name, camera. Or this, what person is this? A monk or a lay person or whatever. Right? So name, form, name, form. Okay, this is not always correct, but it is in working order, we say. Right? So as we become more intelligent, we learn that there are more complicated ways of looking at name and form. They're not very easy, because even name and form are all mind-made. But that's, we'll leave it a little later on. So from consciousness arises name and form. Now, once you have name and form, look at this baby again. This baby is this little ducky, yellow thing. So the eyesight, the baby begins to see things better. And then sounds. We play music. We say words to the child. The child hears sound, and so sound develops. So the more interaction, the more the senses grow. So notice the next one, six sense bases, right? They are called sense bases, not sense organs. Because sense organs, the eyeball itself doesn't work. The eyeball must be functional. That means connected to our body, to the brain, and so on. Okay? So the six sense bases are eye faculty, ear faculty, nose faculty, tongue faculty, body faculty, mind faculty. Okay. Now, once you have six senses, it's quite easy to understand already. We have six senses. There are sense contact. I see something that's called eye contact. Ear hears sound, ear contact. Nose smells something, nose contact. Notice here, contact is psychological. It's not a literal like Eskimo nose touching nose. Eh? It's nose contact means nose. Of course, in science we call nose stimulus. Okay. Eye, ear, nose, and tongue contact. Again, that means taste. Tasting, we call it tasting. Body contact means you feel impact of, say, hot and cold. Of course, someone touching you and so on. Okay. And then mind contact. That means thought arises in your mind. So it's the meaning of word contact. Okay. In fact, this word contact is the way even the pilots use the word contact. Yes, I have visual contact, they will say. That means they can see something. Right? But it's the language used in the suttas. You know? So it's called contact. The process of directing your attention to something out there, to an external sense object. So number 5, the 6 sense bases are the 6 internal sense faculties. Internal in the sense that it is with you here. Then there are the 6 external sense contacts, right? Sound, smell, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and also thoughts. Thoughts are regarded external because they arise in your mind. Then, because there is contact, in other words, because you have sense stimulus, there arises feeling. Feeling here means a kind of measuring. Pleasurable feeling, painful feeling, neutral feeling. These are the 3. Okay? Now in the suttas, there are 3 kinds of feelings in the body, 3 kinds of feeling of the mind. So altogether 6. But the Abhidhamma, they're a bit more sharp in the sense of it's near a scientific mind. They say, oh, okay, you got 3 of body, 3 of mind, but the neutral feeling, they are the same thing actually. Neutral feeling, you don't feel anything. So if you really count, there are 5, only 5, right? Meaning pleasant of body, pleasant of mind, unpleasant of body, unpleasant of mind, neutral, 5, okay? These are just numbers, so we don't need to worry about that. I'm quite happy with the sutta number 6, 3 feeling of the body, 3 feeling of the mind, very easy to remember. The question now is, how do we get all this feeling of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? Okay, here is where we can switch to another model. So if you ask this question, how is it I feel something is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? It's because of perception. So once we talk about perception, you go on to the model of what called the 5 aggregates. All right? In other words, we depend on something we experienced in the past, and we look at the present. If we have experienced this thing happily in the past, we look at the present condition also as pleasant. It's just like, let's say, there was this girl who, for some reason, she's terrified of hairy arms. Whenever she sees hairy arms, she just freak out. We say she has this phobia, and she don't know why. So the story went that they put her under hypnosis. Then she went by regression therapy. She went back in her past, and she said, "Oh, she went through an operation when she was a child, and she was not properly sedated. She's still awake, So she could see the doctor's hairy arm cutting her with knife. You can imagine, you're on the operating table, you see the knife in front of you, you get scared, you see? And you saw the hairy arm. So from that moment, the fear was repressed in her, she got terrified. So the past experience of the knives and hairy arm frightened her, and she kind of reacted when she sees hairy arms again. Right? So there you are, you see, you have the stimulus and then you have the response, right? The reaction. So when you understand this, it helps a lot in counseling and overcome fear and living happily, of course. But that is in the model of the 5 aggregates. Yeah? Form, feeling, perception, formation, consciousness. Right? It's a different approach. But we come back to the 12 links. So here, feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, arises. It's normal. Even in meditation, you meditate, you feel very peaceful. Wow, you feel very happy. You sit too long, legs pain and so on, not very happy. And then somehow, sometimes you have neither pleasant feeling nor unpleasant feeling, neutral feeling. Now, one thing interesting about neutral feeling, you won't really know it until later, after the fact. After it happened only, you look back, you say, oh, just now the feeling was neither pleasant nor unpleasant. Therefore, it is neutral. Okay? Of course, if you are very mindful, you might notice it more quickly, yes. But these are the 3 feelings. So this is where people tend to want nice feeling. When you want nice feeling, craving arises. There you are. Can you see that? The next one is craving, number 8. Very easy to understand, right? When you something nice, you get caught up with it, you want some more, craving arises. What about hating it? How come craving is still there? Because craving works as a twin, the ugly twin, the terrible twin. When you like something, it also means there's something else you don't like. That's how they define each other. Liking means there's something you don't like. In other words, if I like A, that means I wouldn't like not A. Okay, some kind of basic idea like that. Or if I cannot get, I like A, but when I cannot get A, I will not be happy. So that's because of craving. If you don't have craving, then even if you have A or not A, it doesn't matter to you. See? Neutral is when you don't get anything, you feel bored, also suffering, right? So here, this area of the link is very important, because according to some meditation teachers, this link is the weakest. So if you want to break the chain of suffering, at least take your mind away from distraction, to calm your mind down. This is the place. After feeling, make sure you don't go to craving. You break the chain there between 7 and 8. It's okay to feel good, but don't crave for it. How do we do that? That's the problem, How do we do that, right? This is where early Buddhism teaches us a lot of wonderful things. Simply reflect on them as being impermanent, just like in the second section of the sutta. Okay, this nice feeling comes. Let's say you are taking nice, wonderful food. Today, I tasted one of the best masak asam, even though there's no prawn in it. I said, this is amazing. How come this lady must be really a good cook? And then suddenly, Rose comes and says, do you like asam? I said, yeah, very nice. So, I said, I was sort of hinting to my wife, I said, hey, you got to cook this to taste, you know. But then I told myself, okay, this is nice, you know, just take it, you know, don't think too much about it. I'm happy because it reminds me of my childhood days, you know, in Malacca, my mother used to cook like that, right? But then, you got to let it go. Then you're okay. Now, if I'm craving, I say, well, every time I come here, I expect this asam will be terrible, you know. Now, the worst thing is, after a while, I get sick of the asam also, you know. So that's the way craving works, because you can never have enough of it, and then you want something else, you want something else. Like that. It's the snake biting the tail. When the snake bites the tail, the snake gets very angry with the pain. He says, who is this causing the pain in my tail? And he bites harder, you know. He said, more pain, he bites harder still, no end, you know. Actually, it's biting itself. Then later he says, oh, I better stop biting. He also feels good. Now, this is how karma works. The snake biting its own tail. In fact, there's a name for this snake. It's called Ouroboros. Ouroboros, the snake biting its own tail. Of course, in ancient Europe, this snake biting the tail, actually it's eating its own tail. It refers to like this, like samsara, the universe kind of has its own cycle. You know. But to Buddhists, it refers to how our own karma works on us. So another thing we can learn here is this. If something nice arises, say, yeah, okay, it's nice, wonderful, but it's impermanent. So while it lasts, be present there, enjoy it. Then it goes away, you notice, that's it, it's gone. And then something, a taste you don't like comes up, okay, so you just taste it. But then you find actually it's just a taste, okay? Don't hate it. Why? Because when you hate it, then you have reinforced the latent tendency of ill will. In other words, every time you get angry, the chances are you get angry again. Every time you crave for something, you will crave for it again. Then it becomes, it proliferates, and papancha, it grows. That's when you're a big problem. Okay? People start worrying because they think too much. Worrying is thinking too much, right? And what about neutral feeling? You can't notice anything, and then you fall asleep, you feel bored, and so on. So again here, same thing, we reflect on this neutral state. When you're meditating, this neutral state, neither pleasant nor unpleasant feeling, you say it's impermanent. Okay? If you don't reflect that way, then the neutral experience, neutral state will reinforce ignorance. So there you are. Look at the pattern again. Very wonderful, you know, here. Very, very simple. If you see something pleasant, something nice, and you crave for it, you say, oh, I want some more. Then you reinforce the latent tendency of lust. If you see something not nice, you don't like it, you show anger, hatred, you reinforce the latent tendency of ill will. If you see something neutral and you ignore it, you reinforce the latent tendency of ignorance. This is deep in your unconscious, latent tendency. But on the pre-conscious level, what are they called? Greed, hate, delusion. Yeah, they're actually the same thing, but not that strong as your latent tendency. Okay? Greed, hate, delusion. So do you understand now how the three roots arise, right? So our precepts, the precepts is to remind us to hold down, control greed, hate, delusion at least on the pre-conscious level. Pre-conscious, that means you know before you act, right? And the more mindfulness you have, the faster you act wisely. Either do it or don't do it. Okay? You think, oh, this action I'm doing, I got a lot of craving, I better don't do this. Or this action, a lot of anger, I better don't do this. So, and then you switch to the positive mode, the three wholesome roots, which are charity, loving kindness, wisdom. Okay, so this is a little bit extra teaching here on this link. So is it clear now? Feeling, enjoy it, let it go. If you don't, then it becomes craving. Craving means you have not got it yet, so you start running after it. You want some more. Okay? And once you have got it, you hold on to it, you don't want to let go. So next one is clinging. You see the sequence very logical. First you crave means you run after it. Once you got it, you hold on to it, you don't want to let go. Clinging. But remember, there's a saying, whatever you cling to takes the shape of your hand. What does that mean? Whatever you cling to takes the shape of your hand. You have created this idea of something nice or something ugly, and you hold on to that view. And you repeat it so many times until you believe it is true, although it's not true. Now, this is what happens even in religion, We go on repeating something and we think it's true without investigating. What you have repeated, what you have known for so long need not be false, but we can understand this thing in a wrong way. So that's why we got to go on questioning and then correcting our views and so on. Okay? The right view arises. Otherwise, we just cling to wrong views, and that's not very helpful. Okay? So that's clinging. Now, because of clinging, there is existence. Something about karma here. Karma means whatever you do, you become that thing. We often have this idea, which is not totally correct actually, that karma is simply good and bad. You do a lot of good deeds, then you get good results. Married, we say. And we sometimes even think marriage can be transferred. So we are attending this Lotus Sutra seminar. So one of the lecturers say, "Oh, we must transfer marriage after the study." For a long time, we know the word transfer is not correct. You can't transfer marriage. Marriage is not a thing. Marriage is karma, good karma. How can I transfer my karma to you? It's not like tea or coffee or anything, right? Let me drink a bit. It is. What does it mean to dedicate? I say you should use the word dedicate. Dedicate marriage. You fill your mind with loving kindness. Because if you don't have loving kindness, you can't do this. Loving kindness is the energy that pushes this good feeling. A mind of loving kindness. May all beings be well and happy. I dedicate all this marriage to my relative so and so. You must have loving kindness. So I told them, I said, look, you should use the word dedicate. Happily, they agree with me. So we say dedication of marriage. Because whenever you sign out this marriage, you say, I dedicate this marriage to my relatives, right? You can't transfer marriage. It's a wrong view. So here, existence, your karma becomes you. It's not a measure. Karma is not, you get so many things, or you lose so many things. It's a very serious wrong view. Because this is quite common in Buddhism today. For example, we see a rich man, we say, oh, this guy, good karma, and then we show our respect to this person. And you see a poor guy, you say, oh, this guy, bad karma. But what we don't realize is actually this poor guy has got better, good karma, because maybe he's wiser, and this rich guy, maybe he's a crook, We don't know. We simply see externality and we say, oh, karma, So karma is not a way of sizing up people. It's totally wrong. Let me give you another example. Let's say, now we all are born with a human body. Now let's say this man, or woman for that matter, happens to be a murderer, a rapist, and he or she lurks in the dark to get victims, sleeps in the day. And that's what this person does, a robber, rapist, murderer. And all his or her life, she lives like that. So you can imagine human body, but the mind of a fierce animal. So when the body dies, what happens to the mind? What happened to the mind of a person who regularly kills, regularly steals, regularly commits sexual misconduct, regularly lies, regularly gets drunk, regularly gambles? What happens to the mind of this kind of person? In fact, even in this life, this kind of person not human already. You don't have to wait until after life to fall into the states of an asura or a preta or hell being or animal world, you don't have to wait. Right here and now, you can fall into that state. I can tell you, most people out there are not yet human. For example, if you're in a train, this person wants to go in front, you just push you and then go in front. You know, only cows and goats and sheep do that. You know, I think even cows are more polite. I think. You know, so I mean, we should say at least excuse me, or you don't budge away, right? You see, we like that culture, you know. Whereas Thailand is different. Thailand, they actually are very polite because they really practice Buddhism. So if you don't have that kind of simple human civic mindedness, you're not human yet. And I was told in certain cities in China, if this person from two different persons, you know, tell me the same problem from the same city. And these are, I'm talking about elderly people, you know, some people are your age. They're waiting for a taxi. Taxi comes along, it's going to go in, and someone just rushed last minute, push her away, and goes in. Wow, what's more animal than that? I mean, isn't it animal behavior? So in other words, you may have a human body, but we do not have a human mind. So coming back to this person who lives like a murderer, who is a murderer, I mean, and who gambles and so on. So the body dies, body got kind of shelf life. So the mind is not human, right? The mind will look for a similar, like body. So this mind of a fierce predator won't like bright lights. They won't like human beings. So you go around, maybe look for fierce animals. So you see a tiger and tigress mating. And then one of those ancient masters said, if this consciousness looks at the future parents mating and it is drawn to the mother, it will become a boy child. If it's drawn to the father, it becomes a girl child. This is long before Freud knew anything about this, mind you. Okay? Okay? So there you are. We're talking about karma gives you your existence. So do you see how it makes sense there? Right? So from clinging comes existence. So if you cling to all those negative karma, you become that karma. Right now in this life, no need to wait for a future life. Okay? Then because of existence, you keep on living like that, then you'll be born again like that. And then when there is birth, there is decay and death and all kinds of suffering. That it's a package deal. So, why suffering? That's life. It's a package deal, right? You can't end life either. So you have to live life by understanding the Four Noble Truths. Then you understand the game. Then you won't get hurt. So in a sense, in Buddhism, we don't really fight with the world. We learn to live with the world, and then we free ourselves from the world. So those are the 12 links. Any questions? No, I didn't say must not. I'm just talking about the word. Yeah.
So normally which questions are correct? Reflects for example about parents or what?
No. I mean, what you're doing is okay. It's just that you don't use the word transfer. Yeah, I mean, although so you say tawatacha, ame, I mean, there's no problem with that. It's just that when we talk, we should not use the word transfer. It gives the wrong idea. It's like as if goodness can be transferred. I mean, simple logic, you know. How many grams of goodness can we talk like that? I don't know. There's no unit for goodness. Of course, there are some strange Mahayana Sutra which is false, which give points, you know. You come to temple, you light candle, 10 points. You pour oil, 20 points. You donate Buddha image, so many feet, 100 points. Oh, I've got money, you donate money, more points. I mean, I saw this, you know, very strange sutta. I said, please don't distribute this, terrible, you know. It's not measuring everything. You can't measure. So you can't transfer. So, I mean, what you're doing is, all this thing, idang menyatinang hotu, I'm not saying that's wrong, I'm just saying, you are dedicating merits. The real word is, correct word is dedicating merits. Because when you say idang menyatinang hotu, number one, you must have a loving kindness mind. You cannot be angry and dedicate merits. It's wrong. It won't work. I mean, it will work, but wrong way. You know, I mean, let's say if I'm dead and my consciousness floating around, and then you are angry with me, I also feel say, wow, you're angry with me, and I'm more sensitive to that, you know. So you must have loving kindness. And the next one, you say, okay, I remember so and so. This person has been kind to me when we were alive, or this person taught me suttas, you know, so now, wherever this person is, I wish him well and happy. Let's say my consciousness is here, I say, wow, this person remember me. Eh? Of course, I won't talk this kind of language, but I can sense, like a cat, an animal can sense your kindness. And this person feels liberated. If this being, this consciousness is still around, see? So, you are dedicating all this goodness to this person. Whatever you give away, you lose nothing. In fact, the more you give, the more you have. This is the irony of it. That's why I say transfer is not the right word. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong. No, it's that the wording must be properly used. Okay? All right, any other question?
What about sharing?
Sharing also can, but I mean, if you compare sharing and dedicate, you see how the meaning of dedicate has got like you are committed to it. You know, you feel happy about it, and you want to share this specially with someone. Not just, of course you can dedicate to all beings also, yeah, then you can use sharing, I suppose. But I find dedicate more sensible, is what I'm trying to say. Okay?
Dedicate and sharing is the same meaning.
I say meaning is the same, but dedicate has got a better nuance.
Like for death, you say dedicate, or for a life sharing, what is it?
For living, we send loving kindness, we share loving kindness. Only for the dead we dedicate merits. We normally do not dedicate merits to the living. Yeah. Okay? Alright, having understood some basics there, let's look at the sutta. Now you find the sutta is easier. Okay, let's look at page 107. The discourse on conditions, birth, S1220. While residing at Savatthi, that's how the sutta says. That means this is just telling you the location. Then after the Buddha is talking, he says, Bhikshus, I will teach you dependent arising and dependently arisen phenomena. Phenomena means events, if you like, simple word. Eh? Listen, pay close attention, I will speak. Yes, Bhante, the monks replied to the Blessed One in assent. The Blessed One said this, and what bhikshus is dependent arising? Decay and death, bhikshus, are conditioned by birth. Jati pacaya bhikkhave jara maranang. Notice here, we start with death. So this is the last link actually. So this one the Buddha is going backwards. It's starting with the last one. Notice the famous saying now, whether there is the arising of the Tathagatas, Buddhas does come, or no arising of Tathagatas. This element, here the word element here also means principle. Principle, dhatu, stands as the fixity of things, the order of things, a specific conditionality. This rule doesn't change. This is the way, it's the nature of existence, nature of life. Now, specific conditionality here is used as the same meaning as dependent arising, but it has got its own meaning. Specific conditionality refers to how link A brings about link B. That's called specific conditionality. It's specific to the links. Okay, A, for example, because of ignorance, there is volitional formations. That's called A. Because of A, B arises. So that's called idappaccayata. Okay, or specific conditionality. But the whole process, we call it dependent arising. Okay, so you got the big, long theory and the small one. Okay, small one is called specific conditionality. Very easy to remember. The word specific refers to a specific link. The Tathagata awakens to this and realizes it. Having awakened to it, having realized it, it tells, teaches, proclaims, establishes, reveals, analyzes, and clarifies it thus, saying, see, okay, so now the Buddha starts saying, see, okay, pasati, okay, pasata. So, this is not a truth invented by the Buddha. This truth is self-evident. As the Buddha appears, and sees it, then he formulates it, teaches it to us. In this sense, the Buddha is not a prophet. He is not even teaching a religion, so to speak. It's just telling us how to get out of suffering. You don't need religion to get out of suffering. Okay? Any questions on this? Because this is the key idea you must remember, because all the other links, the other sections are connected with this. They're all the same except for the specific conditionality, the one in bold. So after this, we read together, you have a better idea what's going on. To make it interesting, I will, you read to me the bold prints. You just read to me birth because it's conditioned by existence, and then we will read together the Pali. Then I'll read to you the rest of the section. Okay, you ready? Okay, let's start. You read the dark, two dark lines. Okay, birth, yeah. Birth, bhikshus, is conditioned by bhava, paccaya, bhikkhave, jati. Whether there is the arising of the Tathagatas or no arising of the Tathagatas, this element stands as the fixity of things, the order of things, specific conditionality. The Tathagata awakens to this and realizes it. Having awakened to it, having realized it, he tells, teaches, proclaims, establishes, reveals, analyzes, and clarifies it thus, saying, see, birth bhikshus is conditioned by existence. Okay? Go on.
Existence bhikshus is conditioned by clinging. Upadana, paccaya, bhikkhave, bhava.
Whether there is the arising of Tathagatas or no arising of the Tathagatas, this element stands as the fixity of things, the order of things, a specific conditionality. The Tathagata awakens to this and realizes it. Having awakened to it, having realized it, he tells, teaches, proclaims, reveals, analyzes, and clarifies it thus, saying, see, existence bhikshus is conditioned by clinging. Tanha paccaya bhikkhave upadanam. Whether there is the arising of the Tathagatas or no arising of the Tathagatas, this element stands as the fixity of things, the order of things, a specific conditionality. The Tathagata awakens to this and rises.
Having awakened to it, having realized it, he tells, teaches, proclaims, reveals, analyzes, saying,
see, clinging bhikshus is conditioned by craving. Okay, from now on, we only read the bold lines, because we already know the meaning of the refrain. Craving bhikshus is conditioned by feeling. Vedana paccaya bhikkhave tanha. And feeling bhikshus is conditioned by contact. Phassa paccaya bhikkhave vedana. And the next one, contact bhikshus is conditioned by the six sense bases. Salayatana paccaya bhikkhave phasso. The six sense bases bhikshus are conditioned by name and form. Nama rupa paccaya bhikkhave salayatana. Name and form bhikshus are conditioned by consciousness. Vijnana paccaya bhikkhave nama rupam. Consciousness bhikshus is conditioned by volitional formation. Sankara paccaya bhikkhave. Volitional formations bhikshus are conditioned by ignorance. Avidya paccaya sankara. Okay, now let's finish reading. Whether there is the arising of the Tathagatas or no arising of the Tathagatas, this element stands as the fixity of things, the order of things, a specific conditionality. The Tathagata awakens to this, having awakened to it, having realized it, he tells, teaches, proclaims, establishes, reveals, analyzes, and clarifies it thus, saying, see, volitional formation bhikshus are conditioned by ignorance. Thus bhikshus is the suchness therein, the inerrancy, the invariability, the causal conditionality. This bhikshu is called dependent arising. Okay, there is another word is causal conditionality. Alright, so it's very straightforward sutta here. These are the 12 links. These 12 links are backwards. This also depend on rising. So there are two ways: forwards, backwards. Right? Now another one is dependent ending. Dependent ending is when, for example, when ignorance has ended. Okay, next one, like a domino. That one's different. It's not in this sutta. No? This sutta, let's talk about how they arise. Now, actually, there is a section how it ends, but it's given very uniquely in a different way as a reflection on impermanence. It's a very important section. Why important? Because this is the one you reflect on, you can gain stream winning in this life. Section 6. And what bhikshus are dependently arisen phenomena. Decay and death, bhikshus, is impermanent, condition, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, subject to passing away, subject to fading away, subject to ceasing. Okay, this is a long definition for impermanence. So in other words, you want to reflect impermanence, you can use this kind of sentence. Notice, even decay and death is subject to destruction, impermanent. It's changing all the time. Another way of saying is this is an example of impermanence. Okay, now notice all the links. Birth, starting with decay and death, then birth, existence, clinging, craving, feeling, contact, sense, species, name and form, consciousness, volitional formation, ignorance. Right? So again, this one goes backwards. Okay. So if you want to see how it rises properly, you start from ignorance. Number 17, you go backwards. Okay. Okay. Now let's read from number 7. Birth, bhikshus, is impermanent, condition, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, subject to passing away, subject to fading away, subject to ceasing. Existence, bhikshus,
is impermanent, condition, dependently arisen,
subject to destruction, subject to passing away, subject to fading away, subject to ceasing. Clinging, bhikshus, is impermanent, condition, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, subject to passing away, subject to fading away, subject to ceasing. Craving, bhikshus, is impermanent, condition, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, subject to passing away, subject to fading away, subject to ceasing. Feeling, bhikshus, is impermanent, condition, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, subject to passing away, subject to fading away, subject to ceasing. Contact, bhikshus, is impermanent, condition, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, subject to passing away, subject to fading away, subject to ceasing. The 6 senses, bhikshus, are impermanent, condition, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, subject to passing away, subject to fading away, subject to ceasing. Name and form, bhikshus, are impermanent, condition, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, subject to passing away, subject to fading away, subject to ceasing. Consciousness, bhikshus, is impermanent, condition, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, subject to passing away, subject to fading away, subject to ceasing. Formations, bhikshus, are impermanent, condition, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, subject to passing away, subject to fading away, subject to ceasing. Ignorance, bhikshus, is impermanent, condition, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, subject to passing away, subject to fading away, subject to ceasing. Okay, so there you are. So you notice here, there's nothing much to teach here, but something to remember. Read this like a puja. This is the idea of puja. You read this, the teaching is there, the answer is there, it's just that we got to realize this. So now you have done the first part, the formula is there, and then as you live through life, you move around, suddenly feeling arises, and you notice feeling going away. So, oh yeah, I remember this one. Then you have experienced it, okay? You realize it. See, these are the basic ideas. Then the sutta closes, what do you get from all this? 18. Bhikshus, when a noble disciple has clearly seen as they really are with right wisdom this dependently arisen and this dependent arising, and this dependently arisen phenomena, that he would ever run back to the past thinking, now was I in the past? Now was I not in the past? Now what was I in the past? Now how was I in the past? Now, having been what did I become in the past? This is impossible. Okay? Now this is a bit long sentence. Let us simplify this first. So the Buddha says, if you really understand dependent arising, not in a scholarly way, not just for fun, but seriously reflecting on it. A leads to B. Because of A, B arises. Then you will not think about the past. You'll not be troubled by the past. Start thinking, oh, in the past was I rich, was I poor, was I handsome, was I ugly, and so on. It doesn't trouble you. You say, that's all in the past. I'm not bothered about it. So you won't be troubled by it. Okay? 19. Or that he would ever run up into the future thinking, now will I be in the future? Will I not be in the future? Now what will I be in the future? Now how will I be in the future? Now having been what, will I become what in the future? This is impossible, right? So we don't worry about the future. Even the present also, we are not worried about it. Look at 20. Or that he would now, you even can underline now, just make a note of that one. Or the 3 times. Or that he would now be in doubt within himself whether about the present, thinking, now am I? Now am I not? Now what am I? Now how am I? Where now has this being come from? Where now will it or this being go? This is impossible. We're not worried about the present also. Now what is the reason for this? Because bhikshus, the noble disciples, has clearly seen as they really are with right wisdom, this dependently arisen, this dependent arising, and this dependently arisen phenomena. In other words, all these things are impermanent. So if you reflect in this way, in this life itself, you attain stream winning. Okay? So there you are. The sutta ends there. Any questions? Okay, just nice, huh? Okay, so we'll end here with a short reflection. Right, today we have reflected on the 12 links, dependent arising, and the impermanence of what is dependently arisen. And the sutta says that if we understand the nature of the 12 links, we will not be troubled by the past, future, or even the present. In other words, we just simply observe whatever arises, falls away. There is no past, no future, no present, just coming and going, so to speak. No attachment. In other words, we are present, we are happy, we are there, ready for others, able to help them in the real sense of the word. It doesn't mean we run away, we go away, not at all. We are really present in that sense. The reflecting in this way is very wonderful good karma. By the power of such karma, may we be well and happy in this life itself. By all the various good deeds we have done, our faith in the three jewels, our efforts to study the Dharma, our efforts in meditation, keeping the precepts and practice of generosity and so on, may we attain spiritual awakening in this life itself. May we aspire to attain at least stream winning in this life. In this moment of peace, let us send out our loving kindness to all the people here who have worked very hard, the monks who are working here. May they be well and happy. May they see the wisdom of the Dharma, be awakened in this life itself. We also share our loving kindness with our loved ones, our friends and relatives, even our enemies. that they all may see the Dharma and be happy as our friends in time to come. And to those whom the Dharma have not touched, may they see the Dharma for themselves and awaken to it too. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.